Stay frosty and head over to EasyMut.com for the cheapest MUT coins on the market. And when I say cheapest, I mean it. We're talking 1 million coins for around 40 bucks. Use code DIRECTOR for 5% off. Yo, what up, brothers? It's the Director. Chargers fans. All right, dudes, we're going to take a step back today, okay? I know a lot of the times on this channel, you come for the fandom, you stay for the hype. It can be very optimistic, and it should be. You know, football's meant to be fun. If you're not having fun, then what's the point of even being a Chargers fan? But every once in a while, I think it's healthy for us to point out some of the things that maybe has us a little bit worried about the upcoming season. We all want this team to get better, right? The reason that we're Chargers fans, we love this team. We love the players. We love the staff. We want to see the team improve, and of course every single year going in, there's going to be a couple of things that maybe you're a little bit concerned about. For instance, this is not going to be part of the top 5, but one thing people are pointing out is the possibility of a Justin Herbert sophomore slump, a new scheme. I don't really worry about that too much. It's definitely not in my top 5, but it is worth mentioning, I suppose. So in today's video, we're going to be going over my top 5 worries for the Chargers in 2021. As always, please in the comment section below list some of the things that you guys are concerned. I'm going to be kind of vague and broad in this video. If you guys want to get down into more of the specifics, let me know some of the more specific things you guys are concerned about in the comment section below. Before we do get started, guys, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot, helps us battle the YouTube algorithm. And with that, let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. My top 5 biggest worries for the Chargers in 2021. Nobody panic, dudes. This is not doomsday. I'm going to list a lot of reasons why maybe we shouldn't be super over the top concerned about some of this stuff, but it is worth paying attention to. Now, at number 5, we're going to talk a little bit about running back. And I know we got Austin Ekeler in there, who, if I'm going to say right now, you guys should be targeting in fantasy football. This guy could be a top 3 running back in fantasy this upcoming season just because, you know, obviously he gets a lot of production through the pass as well. But what I'm trying to highlight here is that Austin Ekeler is a great running back, but he probably needs a little bit of help out there. And I hate to admit it, but I think the best version of Austin Ekeler that we've seen is when he was paired up with Melvin Gordon a little bit. You want to complement him with a bigger back, somebody that you can count on in those short yardage situations, goal line situations. And Austin Ekeler, as an elevated of a talent as he is, he's not the archetype of running back that I would call upon in those specific circumstances. We do have running backs on the roster that can do stuff like that. Of course, Justin Jackson, unlimited potential in this guy. Honestly, I could see him as a running back 1 on other teams. He's just been having this issue of staying on the field, and sure, he could take on that role. We've got Kelly who could take up on that role, but maybe even considering signing another guy. I'm sorry guys, I know it's going to offend some people. I'm not completely opposed to like a Todd Gurley or a running back of that caliber that can score in the red zone. That's where the Chargers need a little bit of help on the ground game. But speaking of Justin Jackson, he must stay healthy, man. He's one of the guys that I'm worried that may get cut from the roster because what do we say all the time on this channel? The best ability in football is availability. And no matter how good Justin Jackson has been in the past, he just hasn't stayed on the field very, very often. But if he can stay healthy behind this brand new Chargers offensive line, we could see a breakout to the potential of a Melvin Gordon kind of role with the Chargers and that running back unit. On top of that, we do have 2 other running backs to talk about. Joshua Kelly. Okay, so Joshua Kelly, I was pretty excited in the first couple of games that he was featured. I felt that he was honestly a little bit more surprisingly effective through the passing game or the receiving game, and he was one of those bigger archetype running backs I was talking about. The problem is, you guys remember a couple of games specifically versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the guy just kind of came out of nowhere with a fumbling problem. If he can limit those fumbles, maybe, you know, live up to the flashes that we saw in 2020, early in 2020, maybe we can see him become more involved in the offense. But in order to do that, he really needs to limit those turnovers. The Chargers running back room, I think, is really, really close to being complete, but we need to clean up some things in the injury department and turnover department, as well as variety department. And lastly, I'm not really sure, Larry Roundtree III, who we drafted this last April, I'm not really sure what his role is with the Chargers yet. I'll be honest in saying that maybe I was a little overcritical of him during the draft, but still, his skill set, maybe him and Joshua Kelly kind of share the same role. Maybe he sees very limited looks. Me personally, he may be a contingency plan for maybe Justin Jackson departing early, or maybe even not being re-signed into next season. But again, you never know. Running back is definitely one of those things I want to kind of pay attention to, because it's very, very close. Austin Eckler is incredible, but I think we need more variety in there. We need more healthy players in there. Next up, at number 4, my fourth biggest concern in the 2021 season is going to be our schedule, actually. I was actually trying to highlight specific positions, maybe specific players or even coaches, but this is one that does catch my attention that I'm not sure a lot of people talk about, but I'm going to talk about it here. The first half of our schedule is kind of brutal. Washington football team, some people don't pay attention to them, but a crazy, probably the best defensive line in football. That's going to be a huge test week 1 for this brand new Chargers offensive line. The Dallas Cowboys, home opener. I'm optimistic that we can win this game. I really am. But the fact of the matter is, this is one of the most lethal offenses in the league. You got 3 incredible wide receivers. You got Ezekiel Elliott. Going to be very, very tough. You're going to have to keep up point-wise at our home opener to take down the Dallas Cowboys. And then obviously you got the Kansas City Chiefs, who are number 1 in the division. Vegas Raiders we can take. The Cleveland Browns are rejuvenated. That's going to be a tough team to take down, especially with their defense. Baltimore Ravens, week 7. Then right out of the bye, we've got the New England Patriots. This could spell a problem in the efforts of trying to find momentum early. Does that make sense? Finding momentum early in the football season is very important. How many Chargers seasons would have spelled out a little bit differently if the Chargers had won, 1 or 2 more games in September? Those September games can become really, really important, even in October as well. I think the Chargers start revving up a little bit in October, but this season specifically, with the kind of schedule that we're seeing right now, you're gonna need to pick up a few wins under excruciating circumstances against really, really high caliber opposing teams in order to make up for it in the later half of the year. And then finally, I do want to talk just a little bit about the bye week. Bye week 7, not bad, especially with the Chargers circumstance of a brand new scheme, brand new coach, a lot of brand new personnel. The only issue with the week 7 bye is that this is the first NFL season in history that features 18 weeks. It may have been more beneficial for the bye week to maybe arrive a little bit later. I'm saying maybe week 10 or later, just to kind of account for injuries, let people recover and rest. But 7's not bad given our circumstances, but it's definitely not the best. If I could have chosen, it would have been post week 10. Next up at number 3, and this is one that the Chargers did a lot of work on this offseason to address, and of course I'm talking the offensive line. You'll see in there Corey Linsley, I would say the best center in football, snapping it to Justin Herbert. This was a great start. Linsley, Bulaga, we went out and drafted Rashawn Slater. We got Filer and Ibushi in there. The line definitely looks a lot better. I dare say it a top half line in football once everything kind of, gels and congeals a little bit. The only issue with this is that the Chargers, especially given our history, have injuries kind of looming over these very important positions, mainly in Brian Bulaga. Brian Bulaga last season didn't see a lot of action. He was often injured, and that right tackle position, very, very, very important. Now, looking at Brian Bulaga's history as a player, it's kind of weird. He kind of went one season on, one season off, and it kind of rotated back and forth. So last season, I don't know, man, he was off quite a bit. Maybe this season, especially with the arrival of Corey Linsley, maybe we do see a little bit more Brian Bulaga on the field. Of course, that doesn't really do anything for him, but we can only hope that he stays on the field a little bit more. Now, the only thing I can say in that term is that we do have some versatility on this line. Actually, let me show Matt Filer right here. We have versatility in the terms that we do have players that can move across the line a little bit. For instance, if Brian Bulaga were to go down, Matt Filer has played a lot of snaps at right tackle, and he could step in there. It's who steps in for Filer that worries me a little bit. We have okay depth, but in my opinion, not enough. I don't think that flexibility offers too much relief to the lack of depth that we have on the line. So keeping everybody healthy this season, a very tall order in a longer season, is going to be much more important this year than it has in years past. Then finally, new guys like Ibushi and Filer, they need to hold down their spot at guard. I think Filer's going to be just fine. Ibushi, I know there's going to be maybe a camp battle between him and Brandon Hamus, but we kind of have to wait to see. We don't want to make sure that that weakest link is identified right away, and we make sure to address it right away. And the last thing I do want to talk about is the time it takes for an offensive line to gel. This is one of the more complex positions in football when it comes to like unity, when it comes to the chemistry of the players on that line. Sometimes it can take a little longer for this specific unit to kind of congeal and gel. I'm hoping it doesn't take too long. Again, the beginning of the schedule this season, kind of brutal. If it takes this offensive line 4 or 5 weeks to really kind of get in rhythm, come in sync, it might be a little bit too late to grab a couple, early, very important wins in the season at that time. So hopefully they gel very, very quickly. I think the biggest factor in that, though, is going to be Corey Linsley, who's going to be the leader of the offensive line. Very intelligent, again, the best in football, and he emphasizes communication. So I do have a cautious optimism when it comes to maybe them gelling sooner than later. Next up at number 2, can you guys kind of guess where I'm going with this? I think number 2 for me is definitely going to be the pass rush. And it's kind of crazy to say because we have this man on the roster in Joey Bosa, who in my opinion is one of the best defensive players in football. But the biggest thing that Chargers fans really struggled with last season was watching Joey Bosa get double and triple teamed very, very constantly throughout the season. It's because everybody knows, the whole league knows, Joey Bosa is one of the best in the business, and if you can throw as many resources into stopping him, you're going to have a better success at not letting him affect the game, if that makes sense. Getting him help this season, in my opinion, I was hoping to see more from free agency, I suppose. Maybe even like a Jadeveon Clowney, who I don't think really fit that. But I don't even think it's too late. Go out there and get like a Justin Houston. I think Olivier Vernon is still available. Just put another body opposite him that does respect a lot of attention from offensive coordinators and free up Joey Bosa a little bit. I do think Bosa is going to get free more often than he did in seasons past, maybe even since the beginning of his career, because I do expect the Chargers to blitz more, and that's going to cause the offensive line, the offensive coordinator, to maybe panic a little bit and let Joey Bosa go one-on-one with someone he shouldn't. And the other thing I do need to mention about Joey Bosa is that he must stay healthy this season. Bosa, the dude plays really, really hard. And you often see him kind of winded on the sidelines coming in, towards the end of the game, maybe a little bit winded. We're hoping that he can maintain his high level of play and stay on the field. When he's not on the field, it's very, very apparent that the lack of pressure is there for the Chargers. And in a season where I do expect us to get more pressure, Joey Bosa needs to be a part of that. Of course, talking opposite Joey Bosa, we need to talk about the guys that are lining up opposite him. Nuosu and Tillery. These are guys that really need to step up this season. I'm very, very, very optimistic about Uchenna Nuosu. I do think that he has really high play potential. We've seen it, especially versus like the Baltimore Ravens in that playoff game. But it needs to be big and it needs to be immediate in order to help this Chargers pass rush immediately. But I have a lot of faith in Uchenna Nuosu. The guy that I'm a little bit concerned about is going to be Jerry Tillery. I'm really hoping it works out. It's his contract season. He's going to be in a new scheme that honestly I really do think fits him a lot better. It just kind of comes down to his ability to make something happen, and I really genuinely hope he does break out this season. Maybe breakout's too big of a word, but he steps up this season. He just needs to be there in order to kind of complete that unit to get through to the quarterback. I do believe in Jerry Tillery, but between the two, it's definitely him that I'm most worried about. And then finally, talking about rotational players, I think we need to see some pretty quality play out of guys like Fackrell and Rump. Because again, the Chargers, I gotta assume they're going to be rotating guys in and out. There's going to be a lot of different looks. I think Fackrell is actually a low-key really good pickup. It kind of reminds me of when we got Vigil last season. But I do think Fackrell and Rumpf, when they're in the game, need to make some, what of quality plays in order to maintain the momentum of that defense as well. So that's it for number 2. And at number 1, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think this is, and if you agree with me here. I think my number 1 concern with the 2021 Chargers is going to be defensive back, okay? The Chargers have some playmakers back there, though. Chris Harris Jr., Derwin James, brand new Asante Samuel. I think the Chargers DB unit has a lot of potential to be really, really big this season. However, the things that concern me about it right now, the lack of depth of, as we see Gilman in there, although he could be honestly like a year two guy that no one saw coming, but I don't know that right now, if that makes sense. And the Chargers not signing, let's say, another safety to relieve maybe a Nasir Adderley is a little bit concerning. And then the guys that play maybe out deep while Derwin's playing underneath, that's a little bit of a concern. I just think the lack of depth here, and even at cornerback, which we'll get to in just a second, is a little bit worrisome because one guy goes down, the whole system kind of shifts, and there's not a lot of people behind them that I think the confidence of the Chargers fans is behind right now. We also do lack a little bit of speed out there, featuring Chris Harris Jr. Great athlete, great football player, but not really known for his speed. And again, the Chargers in the AFC West go up against a lot of really high caliber players that possess breakneck speed. And if you look at our schedule, we're going up against a lot of the fastest wide receivers in the NFL. The lack of speed in that secondary, I think Derwin James can keep up with anybody, maybe even Michael Davis as far as a raw speed department sort of thing. Outside of that, though, you know, Asante Samuel, he ran something like a 4.45, which is definitely fast, but I don't know if it's Tyreek Hill sort of fast, you know what I mean? So that lack of speed may come back and bind us a little bit later, but again, the way that Brandon Staley shifts around his defense, maybe he's able to mask that a little bit. And speaking of Asante Samuel, his rookie impact this season is going to be pretty big. You guys remember our DBs last season, at least at the start of the year. We had Chris Harris Jr., Casey Hayward, and Desmond King. It was pretty solid. All three guys very proven. All three guys, you know, definitely have a lot of confidence behind them. Of course, things shifted halfway through the season. We lost Desmond King. Casey Hayward was struggling pretty mightily, and Chris Harris Jr. went down. It was a pretty bad season in that department. But the case may be, the top three guys at the beginning of the season looked really solid. This season, it still looks really good, right? Chris Harris Jr., Michael Davis, who I do see as being a big year one in Staley's defense kind of breakout dude, and then Asante Samuel. But Asante Samuel is a rookie, and his rookie impact is going to carry a lot of heavy implications for the Chargers this season. If he can step in there and really be the Asante Samuel that we all believe he can be, then I think the Chargers DB unit, or at least the cornerback unit, is very well set. If he does struggle, maybe a little bit of transition, you know, fatigue coming from, you know, college ball to the pros, that could maybe cause some problems for the Chargers secondary a little bit. I was screaming to the heavens when we did get Asante Samuel. He's somebody that was heavily targeting this last offseason as a perfect fit for the Chargers. Everything's pointing in the direction that he's going to have a really good immediate rookie impact with this team. But if it doesn't, we need to have like a plan B or something to help relieve him a little bit and help him that learning curve into the pros a little bit, soften that a little bit. Lastly, the last couple of things with the secondary, Nasir Adderley must improve this year. I've been a Nasir Adderley believer since his second year, I believe. You know, there's a bit of concern with the injury in year one and lack of production in year two. I think this season's very important for him to step up and start making some plays out there. There is a lot of optimism behind it because he will be playing with Derwin James pretty much for the first time. It's going to allow him to get in better positions to make plays. But the point being, though, is that if he's going to be in that position, he's got to execute and make it happen, because the Chargers, like I said before, didn't really go out there and sign anybody else. It's Nasir's opportunity to grab this season, and he has to take advantage of that this year. If he doesn't, the Chargers could be somewhat in a situation when it comes to safety, but I have heard things about the Chargers defense as far as positions. Chris Harris Jr., Derwin James would be positionless, maybe even, you know, more roles for guys like Alohi Gilman and Mark Webb. The point being here, though, is that it's Nasir Adderley back there at free safety. He's got to clean up the tackles a little bit. He's got to clean up his coverage a little bit. He's got to execute a little bit more efficiently. And last thing, the biggest worry on top of everything in the defensive back department is the health of Derwin James. Derwin James, we say this all the time, when he's on the field, he's one of the biggest impact players in the NFL. He takes a defense from, you know, level 2 to level 1 but with his presence alone on the field. If he goes down again, it is going to shift things as dramatically as they did last year. The Chargers did a lot of work to help like soften the blow of losing him, but when Derwin's on the field, it really does make a huge difference. I have a lot of faith that he will stay on the field. I actually think that he may win comeback player of the year this season, but he's got to stay healthy. I know he's always playing at 100%, which is what you want from your players, but it does worry me a little bit because I want to make sure that he's present for the entire 2021 year. And the last thing I forgot to mention too, the depth at cornerback. If somebody goes down like a Michael Davis, Chris Harris Jr., the next man up, a Brandon Faison, I think we got that guy Smith from the Buccaneers. Again, the quality of backups is a little bit concerning. The Chargers at this point of the offseason still have the flexibility to go out and get some more depth. Some people may be against a guy like, is it Steven Nelson? I think would be a solid add. Maybe even a Richard Sherman. There are names out there that can be picked up to help address that. And there obviously have been rumors like Xavier Howard maybe being available for trade. Those are the kind of things I hope the Chargers do address because, again, this position needs more depth. If we can add quality starters to that, it kind of bumps everybody down and keeps that issue at a minimum. So with that, guys, that's all I've got for today's video. In the comments section below, let me know your guys' biggest worries for the 2021 season. I know this is a bit of an uncomfortable topic, but at the same time, talking about it out loud may allow us to see some of the solutions that the Chargers are trying to implement. I think 99% of it, honestly, is going to be scheme specific. I think the Chargers' new defensive scheme should soften or at least mask a lot of the issues that it has. And then offensively, I think the same thing or the same terms could apply with Joe Lombardi's new defense or offense, which I think is actually going to be meshed with our old offense quite a bit. It's a lot of interesting things to pay attention to, but these are the top 5 areas of concern for me going into the season. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like this content, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up and stay frosty.